He said it didn't mean anything. But that night when he touched my hand under the blanket, he held it like he'd been waiting forever. My heart knew the truth before he ever said a word. He loved me. He just couldn't say it out loud. Not with my brother sleeping 6 feet away. Welcome to my channel. Today's story is about the boy I was never supposed to love. My brother's best friend. Let's begin. I never planned to fall for Ethan Hayes. He was the kind of guy who made everything look effortless. Grinning through history lectures, nailing three-pointers on the basketball court like it was no big deal. And he was always around because he'd been my brother Ryan's best friend since elementary school. At first, he was just that Trian's, boisterous, arrogant, chaotic best friend who left empty soda cans scattered on the coffee table and barged in without ringing the doorbell. But something shifted last autumn. It started with this subtle change between us, like he stopped viewing me as Ryan's pesky little sister. He began looking at me, not like I was a punchline, not like I was background noise, like I was someone he hadn't expected to see and now couldn't ignore. I remember the precise instant everything changed. It was October. We were out at Willow Lake, just me, Ryan, and Ethan. My parents were in New York for a conference. So the three of us crashed at our family's lakeside cottage for the weekend. That evening, Ryan conked out early, sprawled on the couch with one earbud dangling. Ethan and I stayed up binge-watching a cheesy sci-fi series, though honestly neither of us was paying much attention to the plot. The room was dimly lit, only the flickering green hues from the TV casting shadows on the walls. Then amid a dramatic explosion scene and the pop of a third energy drink, he said it. "You're not how I pictured you anymore." I blinked, caught off guard. "What do you mean by that?" He gave a faint smile, almost shy. "You're more grown up now. Different. Not as loud, but in a confident way. You don't force things like you used to." I wanted to fire back with something witty, but I just stared at him, my pulse racing. Because this was Ethan. Ethan, who was always cracking jokes. Ethan, who cycled through dates with popular girls like it was a hobby. Ethan, who was supposed to be straight and absolutely not someone I should develop feelings for, but I had. And that night, when our fingers brushed under the fleece blanket, he didn't recoil. He laced his fingers with mine like it was anchoring him in a storm. We didn't utter a syllable. The cabin was quiet save for the low buzz of the television and Ryan's rhythmic snoring from the adjacent room. We sat there, hands intertwined, both feigning nonchalance while sparks danced up our arms. I could feel my heartbeat thundering in my temples. In that instant, I wasn't afraid. I was truly visible. The following morning, he behaved as if it had all been a dream. No acknowledgement, no lingering gaze, no accidental brush. I talked myself into believing I'd hallucinated it, that my crush was so intense I'd fabricated the whole thing. But 3 days later, back in town, he messaged me a single sentence. That night wasn't nothing. I gawked at my phone for what felt like an eternity. I didn't reply, not out of disinterest, but because I was clueless on how to proceed. This wasn't some fleeting flirtation from a classmate. This was Ethan, my brother's inseparable buddy, the one person who was off limits in every sense. I couldn't tell if that text was the spark of something real or a regrettable. Slipdash up. The ensuing weeks blurred into a whirlwind of confusion. He'd ping me sporadically deep into the night with cryptic notes. "Can't get you out of my head." I replay that moment on loop. What the hell is this? I didn't have answers, but the emotions surged through me like a tidal wave. And that terrified me beyond words. At school, he was classic Ethan, the basketball star. Outgoing, self-assured, predictable. But in those stolen seconds when Ryan's back was turned, he'd shoot me a look loaded with unspoken words. And I despised how I began craving those glances, how my entire being tensed whenever I entered the living room to find him lounging with Ryan. Debating video games or sports highlights. Not because I feared he'd dismiss me, but because I dreaded he might not. I struggled to maintain normalcy, to act like our dynamic was unchanged. But every visit, every time he inched a bit too near or grazed my hand while reaching for the game controller, my reality skewed. I sensed we were barreling toward an irreversible point, and I wasn't sure if I wanted to slam on the brakes or accelerate. There's this persistent pressure that lodges in your chest and won't budge. like a tangle you can't unravel. That's what proximity to Ethan evolved into. The harder I fought to dismiss it, the more oppressive it became. Pretending we were merely acquaintances seemed futile, because once you've clasped someone's hand in secrecy, you can't erase the memory of its warmth. 3 weeks post-cottage, Ethan's texts dwindled. Not abruptly, but gradually, from daily to every few days, then a void. I convinced myself it was for the best. Perhaps he'd dismissed it as a fleeting impulse, a momentary lapse under the stars. Maybe guilt over Ryan gnawed at him. Maybe he'd never been genuine. I attempted to purge the messages. My finger hovered over delete. But I couldn't follow through. Then, one crisp afternoon, I arrived home to him perched on the kitchen island, chuckling at a meme on Ryan's screen, as if our shared secret had evaporated. He glanced up, his grin wavering for a split second. I caught it before it stabilized. He greeted me like a distant acquaintance. "Hey, kid." That casual dismissal stung like a slap. I yearned to confront him, to demand explanations. Instead, I pivoted toward the stairs, feigning indifference. But his voice trailed after me, softer, more urgent. "Mia, wait. Can we chat?" I halted, my heart somersaulting. Ryan had wandered off to the basement for snacks. Ethan lingered in the hallway, eyes darting nervously toward the door, then locking onto mine. "Just for a minute," he urged. I trailed him to the backyard. The autumn leaves crunched underfoot, the air crisp with the scent of impending rain. Everything appeared ordinary, the swing set from our childhood. The faded basketball hoop, but the atmosphere crackled with tension. He didn't dive in immediately. Instead, he jammed his hands into his jacket pockets and fixated on a patch of overgrown grass. "I've been mulling this over nonstop," he finally admitted. I waited, breath held. "About as what happened, what it means." "Yeah," I prompted gently. He let out a frustrated sigh. "This whole thing is screwed up, Mia. Because of Ryan, because of school, because of ... everything. Rumors fly, judgments stick. My folks would flip if they suspected I was." You know, he trailed off, but I understood. If they knew he was questioning his sexuality, if they knew it involved me, his best friend's sister. "But here's the truth," he continued, meeting my gaze at last. "I obsess over that night constantly. It's etched in my brain. I've never experienced anything remotely like it, and it petrifies me." There it was, vulnerable, complicated, authentic. I swallowed the lump in my throat. "I don't want to be hidden away, Ethan," he winced, as if my words struck a nerve. "I'm not aiming to do that to you, but that's exactly what's happening. We connect in shadows. We share moments when eyes are averted. The instant Ryan enters the picture, I'm invisible." He edged closer, his voice dropping to a whisper. "That's not fair. It's not how I see it. Feels that way," I countered, my voice cracking slightly. A heavy silence enveloped us. His face tightened, emotions warring across his features. Frustration, sorrow, perhaps regret. "I don't have a roadmap for this, Mia. I don't know how to navigate being this version of myself publicly. I've hidden behind a facade for years. And you shatter that pretense. You make it unbearable to keep up the act." That confession landed like a thunderbolt. You make it unbearable to keep up the act. Didn't embrace or kiss that day. No physical affirmation. But I witnessed the internal battle raging in his eyes, one side yearning for freedom, the other chained by fear. As the days turned into weeks, our interactions became a delicate dance. Ethan started finding excuses to be around more often, not just with Ryan, but lingering after my brother headed out. We'd steal conversations in the garage, sharing laughs over shared playlists, or debating the merits of our favorite bands. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and purple, he showed up unannounced. Ryan was at practice and I was alone, buried in homework. He knocked softly, a rarity for him, and when I opened the door, his expression was a mix of determination and nervousness. "Can I come in?" he asked, shifting his weight. I nodded, stepping aside. We ended up on the porch swing, the one my dad had built years ago. The neighborhood was quiet, save for the distant hum of traffic and the chirp of crickets awakening for the night. "I can't stop thinking about what you said," he began, staring at his sneakers. "About not wanting to be a secret? You're right. It's not fair to you." My heart skipped. "So, what now?" He turned to face me, his eyes searching mine. "I want to try to figure this out, but slowly. I need time to process. To tell people, starting with myself." I reached out, placing my hand on his. "I'm scared too, you know. Ryan finding out could change everything." He squeezed my hand gently. "Yeah, but hiding feels worse." That night, under the emerging stars, we talked for hours. Our dreams, the what-ifs. It wasn't a declaration of love, not yet, but it was a step toward honesty. For the first time, That night, under the emerging stars, we talked for hours about our fears, our dreams, the what-ifs. It wasn't a declaration of love, not yet, but it was a step toward honesty. For the first time, the knot in my chest loosened just a fraction. But life isn't a fairy tale. The next challenge came swiftly. At a school bonfire party, Ethan arrived with his usual crew, including a girl named Sarah, who'd been flirting with him for months. I watched from afar as she leaned into him, laughing at his jokes. Jealousy twisted in my gut, even though I knew it was part of his facade. Later, when the crowd thinned, he found me by the lake's edge. "Sorry about that," he murmured. Sitting beside me on the cool sand. "It's okay," I lied, though my voice betrayed me. "It's not." He draped an arm around my shoulders, pulling me close. "I'm done pretending around everyone else. Starting tomorrow, I'm telling Ryan." My eyes widened. "Are you sure?" He nodded, a resolute glint in his eye. "I have to." For us, the confrontation with Ryan was messy, as expected. Tears, shouts, confusion, but beneath it all, the unbreakable bond of brotherhood and friendship. Ryan was shocked, hurt that we'd kept it from him, but in the end he hugged us both, vowing to support whatever made us happy. From there, our story unfolded in fits and starts. Dates stolen in coffee shops on the outskirts of town. Late-night drives where we'd park and talk until dawn, hands always finding each other. Ethan came out to his family, a harrowing process filled with arguments and eventual, tentative acceptance. I stood by him, just as he did for me when doubts crept in. Looking back, that weekend at Willow Lake wasn't just a shift. It was the genesis of something profound. Ethan wasn't the boy I was never supposed to love. He was the one who taught me love defies expectations. And though our path was riddled with obstacles, every secret glance, every hidden touch led us here to a place where we no longer had to whisper our truths in the dark. The lake house belonged to Eli's family, a rambling cedar thing on the north end of Lake Martin, Alabama, where the water stayed warm until October and the cicada screamed like the world was ending every night. That weekend in August, half the senior class showed up. Coolers, bonfires, somebody's older cousin buying liquor in town. I was only there because my sister Harper had practically dragged me by the ear. "You're 18, Noah. Live a little before you disappear into art school." I spent most of the first night on the dock, sketching the moonlight on the water, headphones in, pretending I didn't notice Levi Caldwell cannonballing off the top deck in nothing but boxer briefs. Levi was Harper's best friend since second grade. Loud, easy smiling, quarterback golden boy with a laugh that carried across the whole lake. Everybody loved Levi. I'd spent years training myself not to be one of them. But then it was 3 a.m. The party thinning out, and I went inside for a bottle of water. The hallway was dark except for the glow of the fridge when I opened it. I didn't hear him come in behind me until the door swung shut and his voice was right at my ear. Double quotes, "Hey, ghost boy." Turned too fast, water sloshing over my hand. Levi leaned against the counter, shirtless, lake water still dripping from his hair. His eyes were a little red from chlorine or something else. He smelled like bonfire smoke and coconut sunscreen. "You've been avoiding me all weekend," said. Not really a question. I don't avoid. I just exist on a different frequency. He laughed once, soft. "Yeah, I noticed. Then he stepped closer, and I thought he was reaching past me for a beer. But his hand landed on the counter beside my hip instead, caging me in without touching. My pulse was ridiculous. "Noah," he said, quieter. "Look at me." Did. Mistake. His face was inches away, eyes darker than I'd ever seen them. And before I could think of a single clever thing to say, he kissed me. It wasn't soft or careful. It was hungry, like he'd been holding it back for years, and the dam just broke. My hands went to his chest on instinct warm. Slick heartbeat hammering under my palm. And for 10 full seconds, I kissed him back like I'd been waiting my whole life for permission. Then Harper's laugh echoed from the porch, and we sprang apart like we'd been electrocuted. Levi wiped his mouth with the back of his hand, eyes wide, breathing hard. "Shit," he whispered. "Shit, I'm sorry." He was gone before I could answer, screen door banging behind him. The rest of the weekend he acted like it never happened. Wouldn't meet my eyes? Laughed too loud with the guys. I told myself it was nothing, just drunk impulse, just a mistake. I went home Sunday with a sunburn and a bruise on my mouth that had nothing to do with the sun. But then September came. Levi started showing up at our house unannounced. Harper would be at work or cheer practice, and there he'd be on the porch, pretending he was looking for her. He'd linger in the kitchen while I did dishes, asking dumb questions about my sketches. His fingers would brush mine when he handed me a glass. Once, when Harper ran upstairs to change, he backed me against the pantry door and kissed me again, quick, desperate. Like he was stealing something he was terrified to keep. Every time he pulled away first. Every time he looked sick with himself after. "I can't do this," he'd mutter. "Harper's my best friend." This would kill her, and I'd nod, because what else could I say? That I was already in too deep. That I'd started drawing the curve of his shoulder blade when he wasn't looking. We got good at pretending. He'd come over. We'd play video games with Harper in the room, and I'd feel his eyes on me every time she looked away. Some nights he'd text me at 2 a.m., "You up?" And 5 minutes later, he'd be parked down the block, engine off. Waiting, we never went further than kissing frantic, guilty clothes, mostly on. He'd always stop us, forehead pressed to mine, whispering, "We can't. We have to stop." But we never did. Not really. Then came Harper's 18th birthday party in October. Our parents were out of town, so the house was packed, music rattling the windows, red cups everywhere. I stayed near the walls, nursing one beer all night, watching Levi hold court in the living room like always. He was in his Letterman jacket even though it was 80 degrees, laughing with the offensive line, letting girls hang off him. At some point, Madison Pierce's head cheerleader, Harper's co-captain, perfect shiny hair, climbed into his lap on the couch and kissed him square on the mouth in front of everyone. Cameras flashed. People whooped. He didn't kiss her back. Not really. But he didn't push her off either. Just sat there frozen while she grinned for the photos. I felt it like a slap. I set my cup down and walked out the front door without a word. An hour later, my phone buzzed. "Levi, come outside." He was parked 2 houses down, headlights off. I got in anyway. The cab of his truck smelled like his cologne and fast food and guilt. I didn't want that, he said before I could speak. Madison was drunk. It didn't mean anything. "Yeah," I said, voice flat. "Nothing we do means anything either, right?" "That's the rule." He flinched. "Noah." "No, it's fine. I get it. I'm the dirty secret. The thing you do when Harper's not looking? That's not..." He hit the steering wheel hard enough to hurt. "I'm fucking terrified, okay? She's been my person since we were 7. If I lose her, you won't lose her," I said quietly. "You'll just prove you never cared what I felt at all." Silence stretched thin and sharp between us when I reached for the door. His hand shot out and closed around my wrist. "Don't," he said, voice cracking. "Please don't leave like this." I looked back at him. His eyes were wet. I'd never seen Levi Caldwell cry. I stayed. The next weeks were torture in slow motion. He stopped pretending quite so hard. He'd sit closer on the couch when Harper left the room. Text me things like, "Thinking about you," or "Wish I could kiss you right now." Once, when she ran to the bathroom, he reached over and laced our fingers together under the throw blanket, squeezing so tight it hurt, but he still flinched if she walked in too fast. Still looked away when someone at school asked if he was dating Madison. Then came the Saturday. Everything broke. Harper was at an all-day cheer competition. Levi came over to wait for her. We ended up on the couch watching college football on mute, shoulders touching, pretending to care about the score. At some point, he turned and kissed me slow and deliberate, like we had all the time in the world. I was halfway to climbing into his lap when the front door opened. Harper was home early. She stopped in the doorway, duffel bag sliding off her shoulder and hitting the floor with a thud. Levi and I sprang apart like we'd been burned. The room was so quiet I could hear my heartbeat. Harper's eyes went from Levi's flushed face to my swollen lips to the way his hand was still half reaching for mine. She didn't scream, didn't cry, just looked hollow. "Get out," she said to Levi, voice barely above a whisper. He stood up slowly. "Harp's out." He left. The door shut soft behind him. Harper looked at me for a long time. "How long?" she finally asked. I couldn't lie anymore. "Since the lake." Her face crumpled. Not angry, worse. Devastated. "You're my brother," she said. "He's mine. How could you do this to me?" I had no answer that wouldn't make it worse. She went to her room and shut the door. Didn't come out for 2 days. Levi texted nonstop. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Tell me how to fix this." I didn't answer. On the 3rd day, he showed up at the house at dawn. Eyes red, looking like he hadn't slept since it happened. I was on the porch swing in my hoodie, coffee gone cold. He sat down without asking. "She won't talk to me," he said. "I deserve that." I didn't disagree. I told her everything, he continued, voice rough. That it's not just messing around. He stopped, swallowed hard. That I'm in love with you. And I have been for a lot longer than I let myself admit. My heart stopped. He turned to face me fully. "I'm done hiding, Noah. I'm done hurting you to keep from hurting her. I choose you. If she hates me forever, I choose you." I stared at him. The boy who spent years making sure no one ever saw him unsure was shaking. "I love you," he said again, louder this time, like he was daring the universe to strike him down for it. "I'm all in. If you still want me." I didn't answer with words. I just leaned over and kissed him right there on the porch swing in broad daylight. Cars driving past, neighbors probably watching from behind curtains. When we pulled apart, Harper was standing in the doorway. We froze. She looked tired, older somehow. Her eyes flicked between us, lingering on our joined hands. Then she sighed, long and shaky. "I'm not okay," she said. "I don't know if I'll ever be completely okay, but he's been my best friend for 11 years, and you're my brother. If this is real, if you're not going to throw each other away the second it gets hard, then I'll figure out how to live with it." She paused, eyes wet. "But if you ever lie to me again, either of you, we're done. For good." Leva stood up slowly. "I'm so sorry, Harps." "I know," she said. "I hate that I know." She went back inside. Didn't slam the door. Levi looked at me, half smiling, half terrified. So he said, "That went better than I thought." I laughed once, shaky. "We're going to be in therapy for years." "Worth it," he said, and kissed me again. Later that week, Harper found one of my sketchbooks open on the kitchen table. I'd been drawing Levi asleep on our couch, mouth slightly open, one arm flung over his head. She stared at it for a long time. "You really love him," she said finally. Not a question. "Yeah," I said. "I really do." She nodded once, slow. "Then don't screw it up." She handed me the sketchbook and walked away. It wasn't forgiveness. Not yet. But it was a start. And for the first time, Levi reached for my hand in front of her, without looking over his shoulder first. The walls were still there. They didn't come down all at once, but the cracks had started, and light was getting through. Sometimes that's enough. They called him Eli Grayson, the golden boy of Willow Creek High, quarterback. Strata student, the kid who could charm teachers and parents alike with one easy smile. Everyone assumed he had the perfect life. Everyone except me. My name's Jude Harper. My older sister, Lennon, had been best friends with Eli since they were 6 years old, building forts in the woods and sneaking out to the quarry to swim when we were supposed to be grounded. Lennon was the firecracker, loud and fearless. Eli was the calm that kept her from burning the whole town down. They were inseparable, and I was just the quiet little brother who followed them around with a sketchbook, drawing everything I wasn't brave enough to say I'd been in love with. Eli Grayson since I was 14, and he carried me home on his back after I wiped out on my bike and split my knee open. He didn't laugh like the other kids would have. He just said, "I got you, Jude," and meant it. I never told a soul. Not Lennon, not my parents, not even the pages of the journals I burned every summer, because wanting Eli felt like wanting the sun, beautiful, possible, and guaranteed to leave you scorched. Senior year started like every other. Friday night lights, a bonfire's the same 10 songs on repeat. Only this time, Eli looked tired. Not the normal senior year exhaustion. This was bone deep. He still threw perfect spirals, still laughed at Lennon's jokes, but his eyes kept finding me, across crowded rooms like he was looking for something he was scared to name. It happened the night of the homecoming bonfire. Lennon had disappeared with some girl from the soccer team, leaving Eli and me alone by the dying fire. We were splitting the last beer when he said, out of nowhere, "Do you ever feel like you're living someone else's life?" I laughed, nervous. All the time. He stared into the flames. I'm so tired of pretending I'm okay with what everyone expects me to be. My heart slammed against my ribs. What do people expect you to be? He looked at me then, really looked, and the air between us changed. The guy who dates the head cheerleader, takes over his dad's dealership, stays here forever. The guy who isn't? He stopped, swallowed hard. The guy who isn't in love with his best friend's little brother? The world went silent except for the crackle of burning pine. I couldn't breathe. Eli. "I'm sorry," he said quickly, standing up like he was about to bolt. "Forget I said." I grabbed his wrist. "Don't." My voice cracked. "Don't take it back." He stared at where my fingers circled his skin. "Jude, I've been trying not to feel this for years. I thought if I dated enough girls, if I was good enough at football, if I just tried harder, it would go away. It never did. It only got louder, stepped closer. I've been in love with you since I was 14 years old. I never thought you'd..." My voice broke. "I never thought you'd look at me like that." He let out a shaky breath that sounded almost like a laugh. "I'm looking now." Then he kissed me. It wasn't fireworks or movie magic. It was clumsy and desperate and tasted like cheap beer and smoke and 4 years of waiting. His hands shook against my face. When we pulled apart, foreheads still touching, he whispered, "I'm terrified." "Me too," I said. We didn't tell Lennon that night, or the next. We stole moments instead, the cab of his truck after practice, the back row of the movie theater, the narrow space between the bleachers where no one ever looked. Every touch felt stolen. Every kiss carried the weight of what we were risking. I kept waiting for the guilt to hit him, for him to decide I wasn't worth blowing up his entire life. It never came. But secrets rot eventually. Lennon found out on a Tuesday in November. She came home early from practice and walked in on us in the garage. Eli's hands under my hoodie, my back against the freezer, both of us too lost to hear the door. She froze. We froze. For a second, nobody breathed. Then Lennon said, very quietly, "Get out." Eli stepped in front of me like he thought she might hit me. "Len out. Both of you now." We ended up at the quarry, sitting on the hood of his truck, the cold biting through our jackets. Eli kept rubbing his hands together like he could erase what happened. "She hates me," he said finally. "She's hurt," I corrected. "There's a difference." He laughed, bitter. "She looked at me like I betrayed her." "You're her best friend," I said, "and I'm her brother." "We didn't just keep a secret, Eli. We kept it from her." He dropped his head into his hands. "I don't know how to fix this. Start by telling her the truth," I said. "All of it." So we did. The next night, Eli showed up at our house with a six-pack and a face like he was walking to his own execution. Lennon let him in without a word. I stayed upstairs, ear pressed to the floor, heart in my throat. I couldn't hear everything, but I heard enough. Eli crying. Something I'd never heard before. Lennon yelling, then going quiet. A long silence that felt like drowning. Then my sister's voice, small and cracked. "You should have trusted me." Eli's reply was barely audible. I didn't trust myself. Another silence. Then the creak of floorboards, the sound of someone sitting down hard. Lennon said, "Does he make you happy?" Pause. "More than anything ever has." I heard my sister exhale like she'd been holding her breath for weeks. "Then I'll figure out how to be okay with it." "But you hurt him, Grayson, and I swear to God I'd let you kill me," Eli said, and I could hear the smile in his voice. "I'd deserve it." They didn't hug. It wasn't that kind of reconciliation yet. But when Eli left, Lennon came upstairs and sat on the edge of my bed without speaking for a long time. Finally, she said, "You're my little brother. That's forever. But he was my person first, Jude. That hurts." "I know," I whispered. She nodded once. "I'm working on it." It wasn't forgiveness, but it was a start. The rest of the town wasn't as kind. It spread like wildfire. Eli Grayson and Jude Harper. The quarterback and the quiet art kid. People who'd cheered for him every Friday night suddenly couldn't look at him. His dad stopped coming to games. His mom started praying louder at dinner. The coach benched him for team chemistry issues, guys he'd known since kindergarten. Stopped speaking to him in the hallway. Eli took it like punches he refused to block. He still showed up to every practice. Still ran drills until his lungs burned. Still smiled at me across the cafeteria like none of it touched him. But I saw the cracks. The way he flinched when someone whispered faggot under their breath. The way he stopped sleeping. The way he'd grip my hand so tight in his truck some nights I was scared he'd never let go. One night in February, he showed up at my window at 2 a.m., eyes red, voice wrecked. My dad said if I don't end it, he's done paying for college. I pulled him inside, wrapped him in every blanket I owned. "You don't have to choose," I said, even though we both knew that wasn't true. He buried his face in my neck. I already did. Spring came slow and muddy. Eli got into state on a partial scholarship. Academics, not athletics. I got into the art program 2 hours away. We made plans in whispers. Separate dorms freshman year, apartment together sophomore, if we could swing it. Small steps toward a life that didn't feel like exile. Lennon came around in pieces. She started driving Eli to school when his truck mysteriously got keyed for the 3rd time. She sat with us at lunch, even when people stared. One day she looked at Eli and said, "You still owe me a bonfire rematch, asshole." And he laughed so hard he cried. The night before graduation, we went back to the quarry. Just the 3 of us like old times, only everything was different now. Lennon handed us both a beer and said to not being assholes anymore. Eli clinked his bottle against hers. Some of us faster than others. She rolled her eyes, but she was smiling. "I'm proud of you, you know. Both of you. Took guts." Eli looked at me across the fire, eyes soft. Wasn't really a choice. Graduation day was chaos and sunshine. When Eli's name was called, half the crowd cheered like always. The other half stayed silent. He didn't look at them. He looked at me, standing with my family, and smiled like I was the only person in the stadium. After the ceremony, behind the gym where no one could see, he kissed me slow and deliberate. Cap still crooked on his head. "Future starts now," he said against my mouth. I laughed, tasting salt in summer. "Terrifying?" "Completely," he said. "Let's go." We didn't move in together freshman year. We needed space to figure out who we were when the whole town wasn't watching. But every Friday he drove 2 hours to see me, and every Sunday I drove 2 hours back. We learned how to fight about stupid things like laundry and whose turn it was to buy coffee. We learned how to fall asleep on the phone when we couldn't fall asleep together. We learned that love isn't one big moment. It's 1,000 small ones, stacked like bricks until you've built something that can carry weight. Junior year. We got a tiny apartment off campus with windows that stuck and a shower that only ran hot for 7 minutes. Eli worked 2 jobs and still made time to leave sticky notes on the bathroom mirror. You're my favorite person. You snore like a freight train. Draw me like one of your French girls. He crossed that last one out and wrote sorry. Had to. One night in December, senior year almost over, we drove home for Christmas break. The quarry was frozen solid, moonlight bouncing off the ice. We walked to the edge, where the water used to be, and Eli pulled a small box from his coat pocket. My heart stopped. Relax, he laughed, nervous. It's not that yet. He opened it. Inside was a key. It's to the apartment we're getting after graduation. The one with the big window you wanted for your studio. I put the deposit. Relax, he laughed, nervous. It's not that yet. Opened it. Inside was a key. It's to the apartment we're getting after graduation. The one with the big window you wanted for your studio? I put the deposit down last week. Stared at him. You how? Been saving since sophomore year. Every extra shift, every birthday check from my mom. I want a place that's ours. Not dorms, not hiding, not borrowed time. Just us. I kissed him so hard we almost fell through the ice. Years later, people still talk about Eli Grayson sometimes, the quarterback who threw it all away for a boy. They don't see the life we built instead. The gallery shows with my paintings on the walls. The youth center Eli coaches at on weekends, where queer kids from towns like ours learn they don't have to choose between who they are and who they love. They don't see Lennon flying in for Thanksgiving with her wife and their dog that still tries to hurt us all. They don't see the quiet mornings when Eli makes coffee too sweet and I steal his hoodie and we argue about whose turn it is. To take out the trash like any other boring, beautiful couple. They don't see the night he finally did get down on one knee. Right there at the quarry, where it all started. Ring simple and silver because he knows I hate flashy things. They don't see me saying yes before he even finished the question. They don't see the life we chose, day after day, long after the drama faded. But we do, and that's enough.